Not all urban legends are made up for kicks. Many are completely true, and that includes some seriously terrifying stories. You've got axe-wielding psychos, secret tunnels sprawling under entire cities, and dangerous men in the woods. They're real, and so are these other creepy urban legends. There are a few stories surrounding the Bunnyman Bridge in Fairfax County, Virginia. According to one, the area was home to a disturbed teenager who put on a bunny costume before hanging himself from the overpass. In standard urban legend fare, he haunts the bridge and disembowels trespassers with an axe. However, Brian Conley, a local historian, found that the Bunny Man has a basis in truth. Conley says the legend is actually told all over the Virginia, Maryland, and DC area. The whole region echoes with tales of a man in a white bunny suit.
Silly rabbit. Tricks are for kids.
That was enough to make him wonder if there was something to it, and when he started combing through newspapers, he found the origins of the tale. In 1970, an Air Force cadet reported being in a car with his fiancée when a man in a white bunny suit jumped out of the bushes, yelled at them, and hurled a hatchet through the car window. They weren't hurt, but 2 weeks later, a security guard came across the same bunny man, hacking away at the roof supports of a new house. There was a major investigation, but police never found out who was in the costume, and he never appeared again. This one is most common in big cities like New York, but you can find variations on it all over. Supposedly, rats live in the sewers, and it's entirely possible that one will just swim up some pipes and end up in someone's toilet. The lucky victims will just open the lid to find a rat treading water there. The unlucky ones will be sitting on the toilet when it happens. It sounds unlikely, but it's completely and terrifyingly true. The Seattle Times even ran a 2016 piece warning readers what to do when a rat made an appearance in their toilets. It happens way more than anyone would think. The King County Public Health Department answers between 50 and 80 rat and toilet occurrences each and every year. Experts say the rats are trying to get into a kitchen or drain where they smell food. But since the toilet is the easiest access to a home, that's usually where they pop up. Here's another pretty familiar urban legend with a healthy dose of cautionary tale thrown in. It involves a man plummeting to his death outside the building where he works. It turns out the man was a lawyer who was awfully fond of demonstrating just how strong the windows in his building were by throwing himself at them dozens of floors up. One day, the window breaks, and that's it for the unfortunate overconfident attorney. Who would do that? Torontoists say this man was real. His name was Gary Hoy, and he had a weird habit of slamming against the windows of his office at Toronto's TD Centre. On one July day in 1993, he did it in front of a group of visiting students. The window popped out of the frame, and Hoy popped out of the building. He fell 24 stories, and while it's unclear exactly why he thought any of this was a good idea, it did have consequences for his coworkers. The firm, Holden Day Wilson, closed 3 years after the incident, in part due to an inability to recover from the tragedy. The basics of this tale are simple. Crop C will have consequences for his coworkers. The firm Holden Day Wilson closed 3 years after the incident, in part due to an inability to recover from the tragedy. The basics of this tale are simple. Crop C was rumored to be a madman who lived in the woods of Staten Island and hunted misbehaving children. He was said to be an escaped patient from a local institution, with a hook for a hand that he would use to drag his prey back to his lair. Parents would threaten their children with abduction by Crop C if they didn't behave. Whether the parents knew it or not, Crop C was terrifyingly real. The Willowbrook State School closed in 1987 after becoming the subject of an infamous 1972 expose by Geraldo Rivera. It wasn't long after Willowbrook's closure that former employee Andre Rand was arrested in connection with several disappearances. He was ultimately convicted after authorities found a child's body buried in a shallow grave on the grounds of the institution. Rand was ultimately linked to other disappearances but has steadfastly maintained his innocence. Some don't believe he was the killer at all, but the fact remains someone was. Anyone who was online during the early days of the internet probably remembers seeing forwarded emails warning about someone with the screen name Slave Master.
Just leave me to do my dark bidding on the internet.
The emails were pretty straightforward. If someone with that screen name reached out, he should be avoided at all costs. Supposedly, the screen name belonged to a man looking to convince unsuspecting women to meet him in real life so he could kill them. Sound likely? It was 100% true, and his name was John Edward Robinson Sr. Those at his church knew him as a devoted family man, neighborhood activist, and brilliant entrepreneur. Local authorities apparently knew he had once been convicted of being a con artist, but no one suspected the depths of his depravity. Upon investigation, it was discovered he had a long history of horrible behavior before he even adopted his slave master identity. He was ultimately linked to the disappearance of a number of women, including a Polish college student and a 27-year-old home care nurse. Finally, a 34-year-old woman he targeted called the police. When they searched his home, they found bodies sealed in 55-gallon metal barrels. Robinson had beaten his victims to death, and although it's unclear just how many women he murdered, police did find more bodies that he'd been keeping for years. The story starts with someone settling into a hotel room and noticing a strange smell. They might complain, they might not, but they always spend a few days in the room before the smell gets so unbearable they investigate fully. It's only then they find the dead body under the mattress. This isn't just true, it happens with terrifying regularity. Each time, guest complaints led to a complete search of a hotel room and the discovery of a dead body. The stories are surprisingly varied. The first body was Gary Smith, a car thief poisoned and strangled by his associates, then left under the bed of a New Jersey motel room that was rented about 4 times before he was found. 2 bodies discovered in 2 different motels in 1989 were the work of the same killer, Jerry Lee Dunbar. In 2003, a man spent 3 nights in a Kansas City room before the smell became so unbearable he checked out. When the room was cleaned, a man in an advanced stage of decomposition was found under the mattress. In short, if something smells in your hotel room, ask for a cleaning sooner rather than later. Urban legend says there's a horribly disfigured creature that wanders the forests and highways around Pittsburgh. Sometimes he's called the Green Man, sometimes he's called Charlie No Face, sometimes he's even called the Monster of Beaver County. All of these names are awful because he was actually a very sweet man named Ray Robinson. In 1919, 8-year-old Robinson had an accident that changed his life forever. He was climbing a trolley trestle when he touched a live power line and was electrocuted. He lost one hand and his face was melted. He grew up incredibly isolated, and at night he liked to walk the local highways. Even into the 21st century, teens cruise the highways looking for the Green Man. But those who grew up in the area in the 1960s actually found him. Some were incredibly cruel to him, and others made a friend who changed their lives. Robinson liked to chat with the kind ones, talk baseball, and drink beer. Documentary writer Tisha York interviewed hundreds who met him and summed him up like this: "People were just so cruel to him, and he never understood why. Underneath it all was this beautiful, kind man." Robinson died in 1985, but his legend lives on. Here's the terrifying story. Someone goes on vacation and then comes back and starts suffering severe headaches or earaches not long after. The cause? Bugs crawled into the hapless vacationer's ears and nestled in their brain. Sorry, but this one isn't just true, it's happened a couple of times. In 2013, Rochelle Harris returned to Britain from a holiday in Peru. When she started hearing scratching noises, she was a little worried. It got worse when the headache started. When she woke up with a mysterious liquid on her pillow, she decided to seek medical attention for what she thought was an ear infection. The truth? A fly she'd swatted out of her ear in Peru had laid eggs in her ear canal, and she was now home to a family of maggots. She needed surgery to remove them. Then, in 2015, Yadira Rostro underwent surgery after suffering from 9 months of headaches. The cause? Tapeworm eggs in her brain. Doctors were pretty sure she picked up the parasite when she was in Mexico 2 years prior, and that it had traveled through her bloodstream and into her brain where it laid eggs. Good luck enjoying another vacation. It's part urban legend, part crime drama trope. It's the one about the serial killer who almost gets away with murder by feeding the bodies of his victims to pigs.
Then I hear the best thing to do is feed them to pigs. You've got to starve the pigs for a few days.
It's used in a lot of fiction, and it's happened a lot in real life. In 2013, The Telegraph reported on a police investigation from southern Italy. According to taped phone conversations, Francesco Ricosta was murdered during a mafia turf war. Then his body was fed to pigs. In 2015, USA Today reported that Susan Monica had been found guilty of not only murdering 2 men, but of disposing of the bodies by feeding them to her pigs. But the idea goes back even further to one of Canada's most infamous serial killers. Robert Pickton was arrested in 2002 for the murders of 26 women over the course of around 6 years. Most were snatched off the streets of Vancouver, and according to the testimony of those who knew him, he bragged of killing dozens of women and disposing of their bodies by feeding them to his pigs. Thousands of DNA samples were ultimately recovered from his farm. Sometimes the most terrifying Halloween stories are the true ones. Take, for instance, the tale of a very realistic-looking decoration. It's so realistic, in fact, neighbors eventually call the police to come check it out. It's only after days of sitting in plain view that someone realizes it's an actual body. It's happened a few times. The first incident was in 1990 when sometimes the most terrifying Halloween stories are the true ones. Take, for instance, the tale of a very realistic-looking decoration. It's so realistic, in fact, neighbors eventually call the police to come check it out. It's only after days of sitting in plain view that someone realizes it's an actual body. It's happened a few times. The first incident was in 1990 when a 17-year-old Halloween hayride worker accidentally hanged himself along the route of the attraction. He was supposed to be portraying a hanged man when he was strangled by the prop rope. Then in 2005, NBC News reported that a woman committed suicide by hanging herself from a tree along a fairly busy Delaware roadway. She was believed to have done it late on a Tuesday night or early on a Wednesday morning, and the people who saw her Wednesday thought it was a Halloween prank. Police were called hours later, and only then did they discover it wasn't a prank at all. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.